What's up, everybody, and welcome back to OpenStax Algebra and Trigonometry, Chapter 11, Section 7, Solving Systems with Inverses. Let's do it. In a previous section, we showed that matrix multiplication is not commutative, that AB does not equal BA in most cases. Can you explain why matrix multiplication is commutative for matrix inverses? That is, the inverse times itself times the original matrix is the same as the matrix times the inverse in either order. This really comes down to the relationship between matrices and their inverses, because the thing is, it's just by definition, right? Anytime you multiply an inverse times the original matrix in either order, you're going to end up with the identity matrix. You're going to end up with ones and then zeros all around. This is for a 3 by 3. For a 2 by 2, the product would be this. So, but that's really the gist of it. It just happens to be the case. For an inverse and the original matrix, no matter which way you multiply them, you're going to end up with the identity matrix if they are indeed inverses. Can a 2 by 2 matrix with an entire row of zeros have an inverse? And I would say no. And the reason why is because think about it, right? If you supposedly had an inverse, the product of this and its inverse should be the identity matrix, right? It should have 1, 1 like this and zeros here and here. But the thing is, if you have an entire row of zeros, the bottom two resulting values are going to be 0 because remember, you go this times this row, or column, I should say, and that's going to provide a 0. And then that row times this column is also going to be a 0 because it's 0 times something plus 0 times something. So you're not going to be able to get that identity matrix product as a result. So I would say no, it cannot have an inverse. Done. Can a matrix with zeros on the diagonal have an inverse? And to this, I would say yes. And I'm going to show you why with the example they give in the back of the book. So if we take this matrix, for example, this does have an inverse. But the thing is, the inverse happens to be this exact identical matrix. So I'm going to show you why. When I multiply these out, watch what happens. 0 times 0 is 0 plus 1 times 1 is 1. 0 times 1 is 0 plus 1 times 0 is 0. 1 times 0 plus 0 times 1 is 0, and then 1 times 1 is 1 plus 0 times 0 is 1. Therefore, you get the identity matrix, which verifies that these two are indeed inverses, so that's how you do it. Done. So for this one, we got to show that these two are inverses of each other. So to show that, we're going to multiply them and see if we indeed get the identity matrix as a product. So we're going to do a little color coding. We got first times that, like that first row times first column. So we got -2 plus 2 times 3 halves is 3. Then we got 1 times 1 plus 2 times -1 half. That is 1 minus 1. Then we got the second row times the first column again. 3 times -2 plus 4 times 3 halves. That's -6 plus 6. And then last but not least, we got 3 times 1 plus 4 times -1 half. That's 3 minus 2. Now, as we simplify that result, we get -2 plus 3 is 1, 1 minus 1 is 0, -6 plus 6 is 0, 3 minus 2 is 1. That is the identity matrix. This confirms these are indeed inverses. That's how you do it. Done. For this one, to see if these are inverses, let's multiply them and see if we get the identity matrix. So first we got -2 times -2 plus 1 half times -6. That's 4 minus 3. Next, we have -2 times -1 plus 1 half times -4. That is 2 minus 2. Next, we have 3 times -2 plus -1 times -6. That's -6 plus 6. Last but not least, we got 3 times -1 plus -1 times -4. That's a -3 plus 4. As we simplify this, we get 1, 0, 0, 1. That is the identity matrix. This confirms that these are inverses. Done. To confirm if these are inverses, we're going to multiply them against each other. By the way, there's a 1/4 in front of here. So when I write these out, I'm going to distribute that 1/4. So what I did is I multiplied that scalar into every one of these terms. Hence, we got 6 turns into 3 halves, 0 stays 0, etc. Now let's do a little multiplication. So we got 1 times 3 halves plus 2 times 17/4 plus 3 times -3. So that's 3 halves plus 17 halves minus 9. Next, we do times the second column. 1 times 0 plus 2 times -3/4 plus 3 times a half. That is 0 minus 3 halves plus 3 halves. Okay, you can see that's going to go to 0. Cool. Next, 1 times -1 half plus 2 times -5/4 plus 3 times 1. So that's -1 half minus 5 halves, and then plus 3. Next, we start with the second row, and we go back to the first column. 4 times 3 halves plus 0 times 17 fourths plus 2 times negative 3. 4 times 3 halves is 6, 0 is 0, and then 2 times negative 3 is negative 6 or minus 6. Next, we have 4 times 0, second column, right? 0 times negative 3 fourths and 2 times 1 half. You see that these two are, products with 0, so they go away. We just keep the 2 times 1 half, which is 1. Next, we have times the third column, 4 times negative 1 half, 0 times negative 5 fourths, 2 times 1. 4 times negative 1 half is negative 2, 0 times negative 5 fourths, 0, 2 times 1 is positive 2. Now we come to the last row, first column again, 1 times that, 6 times that, 9 times that. We get 3 halves plus 51 over 2, that's 6 times 17 over 4. Minus 27. Next, we got 1 times 0 is 0, 6 times negative 3 fourths, and 9 times a half. So 6 times negative 3 fourths is negative 18 fourths, or negative 9 halves. 9 times a half is positive 9 halves. And then last but not least, in yellow, we got 1 times negative 1 half, 6 times negative 5 fourths, 9 times 1. So we got negative 1 half. Hope you can see that's a little light. And then 6 times negative 5 fourths is negative 30 fourths, or negative 15 halves, and then 9 times 1 is plus 9. Now, as we simplify this out, you see that 3 halves plus 17 halves, that's 20 halves, which is 10 minus 9 is 1. That goes to 0. Negative 1 half plus negative 5 halves, that's negative 3, plus 3 is 0. Over here, we have 6 minus 6 is 0. Here we have a 1. Here we have negative 2 plus 2 is 0. And then here we have 3 halves plus 51 halves. That's 54 halves, which is 27. Minus 27 is 0. Negative 9 halves plus 9 halves is 0. And then we got negative 1 half plus negative 15 halves. That's negative 16 halves, which is negative 8 plus 9 is 1. Check it out. There's the identity matrix. That means those were inverses. That's how you do it. Done. All right, so for this one, we're going to find the inverse of this matrix. And we got this little infographic up here that's just going to help us with the method. So what we're really looking at is just this component of the infographic, okay? So what's the first step, right? And it's nice and color-coded for us. You see what happens is these two values are swapped, right? So first I'm going to swap, that's like 3 and 9. So we're going to swap those. We get 9 and 3. And then with these two values, they flip their signs, right? The numbers stay in the same position, but they go opposite signs. So same with 1 and negative 2. So that's going to be negative 1 and positive 2. And then we multiply by 1 over, and then we go 3 times 2, which is those two. So in our case, it's going to be 9 times 3, right? 9 times 3 is 27. And then it's minus negative 4 times 1. So in this case, it's going to be negative 1 times 2, which is negative 2, okay? And then as we simplify that minus and negative, that's plus. So 27 plus 2, that's 1 over 29. Now to get the full matrix, we'd usually multiply in the scalar, and it'd be 9 over 29, 2 over 29, etc. But in the back of the book, they left it as is, so that's your answer. Done. So for this one, following our little infographic, we're going to start by swapping the blue and the yellow, right? Those two, those just change positions. So that's negative 3 and 2. So we got 2 and negative 3. And then these two, we're going to flip their signs. So they're both going to go negative in this case. Then we multiply by 1 over the product of these two, which is negative 6, minus the product of these two, which is 63. So negative 6 minus 63 is negative 69. So we can say the final answer is negative 1 over 69, that's scalar, times that matrix. That's how you do it. Done. And by the way, in the back of the book, they have a slightly different answer, right? This is negative, that's positive, this is positive, this is positive. But then they negated that. They flipped the sign. They made that positive 1 over 69. It's the identical thing, same thing. So however you want to do it. So for this one, we're going to start by swapping these guys. And then we got 2, 1, and for these two, we're going to swap their signs. So we got negative 2 and negative 1. And then we're going to multiply by 1 over the product of these guys, which is 2, minus the product of these guys, which is also 2. But wait a minute, that gives us 1 over 0. Obviously, that's undefined. And what that means is that there is no inverse for this question. That's how you do it. Done. So for this one, we're going to start by swapping these two, right? So we got negative 0.5 up here, 0.5 down here, and multiplying both those by negative 1. So we got negative 1, negative 1.5. Okay, and then we're going to multiply it by the scalar of 1 over the product of, actually, let's do it from the new matrix. The product of these guys, which is negative 0.25, minus the product of these guys, which is positive 1.5. And that is going to give us 1 over negative 1.75. Now, since we normally don't like decimals in these fractions, we can multiply top and bottom by 4, and that's going to give us a scalar of negative 4/7. Now, again, for whatever reason, in the back of the book, they like to distribute that negative in and flip all these so the scalar out front is positive, but it doesn't matter. This is also a sufficient answer. Either way, that's how you do it. Done. So for this one, to get the inverse of a 3 by 3, what we're going to do is we're going to rewrite this matrix on the left-hand side. On the right-hand side, we're putting in the identity matrix, which is a diagonal thing of ones and then zeros all around. And the strategy here is to try and flip this one into this, okay? And I'm going to show you how to do that with row operations. And then as we do that, this is going to transform because the identical row operations will be performed there as well. And then whatever resulting matrix we get here, that's our inverse. So starting off, right, I know I need a 1 in this spot, right? So you know what I'm going to do right off the bat is I'm going to swap rows 1 and rows 3. Okay, so we're just going to swap them out. Let's write that out. So check this out. Now we have a 1 here, we have a 1 here, and we only need a 1 there. So we're on the right track. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to flip that one to a 0. And we're going to do that. Let's see if we can make room up here. We're going to do that by multiplying row 1 by negative 4 and then adding it to row 2 to get a new row 2. Let's write that out. So we got negative 4 times 1 is negative 4 plus 4 is 0. Negative 4 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 4 times 5 is negative 20 plus 0 is negative 20. And then we got to do it here as well, right? Negative 4 times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. And then times 1 is negative 4 plus 0 is negative 4. Boom. Now I'd love to zero this one out. That's pretty easy. I'm going to multiply row 2 by a negative and add it to row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's see if we can squeeze it in here. So we got 0 times a negative plus 0 is 0. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Positive 20 plus negative 3 is positive 17. And then we got to go over here. 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 1 plus 0 is negative 1. And positive 4 plus 0 is 4. Now I'd love to flip that to a 1. And in order to do that, I'm going to multiply the third row by the reciprocal of that, which is 1 over 17. Let's write that out. So we got that times 0 is 0, that times 0 is 0, that times 17 is 1. That's what we want. And then that times 1. Now we get some gnarly fractions, 1/17, negative 1/17, and 4/17. Yikes. All right, now we got to flip this one to a 0. So that's pretty nice because I can multiply row 3 by 20 and add it to row 2 to get a new row 2. Let's write that out. So I got 20 times 0 plus 0 is 0. 20 times 0 plus 0, 20 times 0 plus 1 is 1. 20 times 1 is 20 plus negative 20 is 0. That's perfect. And now we got this one. So 20 times 1 over 17 is 20 over 17 plus 0 is 20 over 17. And then we got 20 times that is negative 20 over 17. So negative 20 over 17 plus that 1, which is positive 17 over 17, right? Gives us negative 3 over 17. And then we got 20 times this, which is 80 over 17, which we're adding to negative 4, which would be, what would that be? Negative 68 over 17, right? 4 times 17 is 68. And that would give us positive 12 over 17. All right, great. So last but not least, we got to flip this to a 0. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by negative 5 and add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. So we have negative 5 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 5 times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. Negative 5 times 1 is negative 5 plus 5 is 0. Beautiful. Now we have what we want here. And now we got to finalize this one. So negative 5 times 1/17 is negative 5/17 plus 0 is just negative 5/17. Negative 5 times this is positive 5/17 plus 0 is just 5/17. And last but not least, we got negative 5 times that. That's negative 20 over 17 plus 1, which is positive 17 over 17. And that gives us negative 3 over 17. So this is our inverse matrix. Now, the way they presented it in the back of the book is they actually factored out the 1 over 17 as a scalar, which is fine. Like, you can present it like this, or what they did is they're like, hey, we'll factor out the 1 over 17, and then we can just write it much more easily with those nice numerators. So then we have negative 5, 5, negative 3, 20, negative 3, 12, 1, negative 1, and 4. So that is how you do it. Boom, done. All right, so to get the inverse of this matrix, what we're going to do is we're going to write out the matrix on the left-hand side. And on the right-hand side, we're going to put in that nice identity matrix like so. And the goal is to flip every value here to be like this, while simultaneously applying those same operations to this side. And then whatever we get on the right-hand side will be our inverse matrix. So starting off the bat, we got the 1 here. We got to flip that and that to 0. So first I'm going to multiply row 1 by -2 plus row 2 to get a new row 2. Let's write that out. So we got -2 times 1 is -2 plus 2 is 0. Boom. -2 times 9 is -18 plus 5 is -13. And then -2 times -3 is 6 plus 6 is 12. We got to do the same here. -2 plus 0 is -2. 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Great. Now let's flip this guy. We're going to multiply row 1 by -4 and add it to row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's check it out. So we got -4 plus 4 is 0. -36 plus -2 is -38. And then positive 12 plus 7 is 19. Then we got -4 plus 0 is -4. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. All right, great. Now let's flip this one to a positive 1. So I'm going to multiply by -1 over 13, aka the reciprocal. Let's write that out. So that times 0 is 0. That times -13 is 1. That times 12 is -12 over 13. Then that times -2 is positive 2 over 13 times 1 is -1 over 13, and then that times 0 is 0. Next, I'd love to zero out both of these. First, I'm going to multiply row 2 by -9 to zero out row 1. So we're going to add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write that out. So we got -9 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. -9 times 1 is -9 plus 9 is 0. -9 times that is 108 over 13 positive plus -3, which is -39 over 13. 108 minus 39, that is 69. So we got 69 over 13. And then we have -9 times that, which is -18 over 13 plus 1, which is 13 over 13. That's a -5 over 13. And then we have here -9 times -1/13. That's positive 9 over 13 plus 0 is just 9 over 13. And then times 0, 0 plus 0 is 0. Now I'd love to zero this one out. So I'm going to multiply row 2 this time by positive 38. Add it to row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's check it out. So we got 38 times 0 plus 0 is 0. 38 times 1 is 38 plus -38 is 0. All right. Now we have 38 times -12. That's -456 over 13. And then we're adding that to 19, right? So 19 times 13 is positive 247, and that's going to be over 13. So now I have common denominators. Now I add those together and I get -209 over 13. Then I do 38 times 2/13, which is 76 over 13. And then we're adding it to -4, which would be -52 over 13 with a common denominator. 76 minus 52 is 24. So now we got 24 over 13. And then again, 38 times -1/13 is -38/13 plus 0 is just that, right? -38 over 13. And then times 0, 0 plus 1 is 1. All right, we're getting there. We're almost there. We got one column left. Now we got to multiply by the reciprocal of this to turn that into a nice 1. So -13 over 209 times row 3. Let's write it out. So we got that times 0 is 0, that times 0 is 0. This times its reciprocal is 1. That's what we wanted. Okay, now we got these ones, right? So now we got -13 over 209 times 24 over 13. Cancel, cancel. We get -24 over 209. The same thing's going to happen with this one, except we're going to be left with -38 over -209, which the negatives will cancel out. So just 38 over 209. And then times 1 is going to be -13 over 209. Now we got 2 steps left. We got to zero these 2 out. Great. Okay. So first I'm going to multiply row 3 by, what is that, 12 over 13, because it's, the opposite sign is that, plus row 2 to get a new row 2. Let's write it out. So yeah, that times 0 plus 0 is 0. That times 0 plus 1 is 1. That times 1 plus negative 12 over 13 is 0. That's what we want. Now I'm going to make a little bit more room because this is some heavy calculations we got to do here, right? We have to do 12 over 13 times negative 24 over 209, and then we're adding that to 2 over 13, like so, right? So 13 times 209 is 2717. 12 times negative 24, that's 240 plus 48, negative 288. And then we got to add it to, this is going to be 27 over 17 as well, but multiplying by 209 over 209, so that's going to be 418 on the top. Negative 288 plus 418, that's 130 over 2717. These both are divisible by 13, like so. And then we get 10 over, back to that 209. So we got 10 over 209 right here. Next, we got to multiply that by 12 over 13. So 38 over 209 times 12 over 13. So once again, we know we get that denominator of 2717. And then 12 times 38 is 456. And then we're combining it to the negative 1 over 13, which is going to be 209 over 2717. How did I get that? Because I multiplied top and bottom by 209. 456 minus 209 is 247 over 2717. Again, we can divide top and bottom by 13, and it's going to be 19 over 209, and that is positive. Last but not least, we got to multiply negative 13 over 209. So this one will be a little easier. So when we multiply here, these are going to cancel out nicely. So we just got negative 12 over 209, and then we're adding that to 0. So that stays as is. Brutal problem with these denominators of 209. But we're almost there. Now, last but not least, we got the top dog. We got to multiply to get rid of that. So we got to multiply row 3 by negative 69 over 13. Add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. Here we go. So I got this times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1 times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0 times 1 is negative 69 over 13 plus its opposite is 0. That's what we wanted. All right. Now we got the major arithmetic that we have to do. So we got negative 69 over 13 times negative 24 over 209. So that gives us 1656 over 2717. And then we're adding it to negative 5 over 13. Again, if I multiply by 209 over 209, I get negative 1045 over that 2717. And that leaves us with 611 positive over 2717. Divide top and bottom by 13, and we get positive 47 over that 209. So notice everything seems to have this nice denominator of 209. Next, I'm going to do negative 69 over 13 times 38 over 209. And then we're going to be adding that to 9 over 13. 69 times 38 is 2622. Again, we know the bottom is going to be 2717. And then 9 times 209 is going to be 1881. And then because we're multiplying the denominator by 209, that gives us the common of 2717. And then negative 2622 plus 1881 is negative 741 over 2717. We can divide top and bottom by 13, and we get negative 57 over 209. Last but not least, we got to multiply this times that and add it to 0. So we got negative 69 over 13 times negative 13 over 209. This is pretty nice because negatives are going to cancel, 13s are going to cancel, and we're done with 69 over 209. Now again, this is fully acceptable as our inverse matrix, but the way they did it in the back of the book is they factored out that scalar of 1 over 209 because it's common to every term, and then they wrote it out like this. Is much nicer, easier to just put whole numbers in. Then we got 47, negative 57, 69, right? All those numerators, 10, 19, negative 12, negative 24, 38, and negative 13. And that is how you do it. Done. So for this one, we're going to start by writing out the matrix next to the identity matrix, okay? And the identity matrix, once again, is just that diagonal of ones with zeros all around. And then once we put this in here, we're going to basically try and flip this matrix into the identity matrix, and then whatever's left over here as we perform those row operations, that will be the inverse. So I'm looking at these rows and these fractions, and right off the bat, I'm like, I want to get rid of these fractions. Let's clear all the fractions. So I'm going to do sort of like 3 row operations in one. And we're going to write it out here. I'm going to multiply row 1 by 2, right? That's going to clear those into ones. I'm going to multiply row 2 by the LCM of 3, 4, and 5, which I believe is 60. So that's going to be times row 2. And then times row 3, the LCM of 6, 7, and 8, that would be 56 times 3, which is 168. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by 168. All right, let's check this out now. So 2 times row 1, those are all going to be 1, 1, and 1. And then 2 times that is 2, times 0 and 0 is 0 and 0. Times row 2, 60 times 1/3 is 20, times 1/4 is 15, times 1/5 is 12. And then we got 0, 60, 0. And then for row 3, 168 times 1/6, that is 28, times 7, that is 24, right? 24. And then times 8, that is 21. 21. And then times 0, 0 is 0, 0. Times 1 is 168. Great. Now I get a nice 1 over here. I'd love to zero these two out. So first, I'm going to do row 1 times negative 20 plus row 2 to get a new row 2. Let's write that out. So we got negative 20 plus 20 is 0. Negative 20 plus 15 is negative 5. And then negative 20 plus 12 is negative 8. Then we got negative 20 times 2 is negative 40 plus 0 is negative 40. These are 0, so these will stay the same, 60 and 0. Now I'd love to flip that to a 0, so let's multiply row 1 by negative 28 and add it to row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write it out now. So then we got negative 28 plus 28 is 0. Negative 28 plus 24 is negative 4. Negative 28 plus 21 is negative 7. Then we got negative 28 times 2 is negative 56 plus 0 is negative 56. Then we got times 0 is 0 plus 0, 0 times 0, 0 plus 168 is 168. Great. Next, I'd love to flip that to a positive 1. So I'm going to multiply row 2 by the reciprocal, which is negative 1/5. Let's write that out. So we got that times 0 is 0. That times negative 5 is 1. That times negative 8 is positive 8 over 5. That times 40, or negative 40, I should say, is 8. That times 60 is negative 12. And then that times 0 is 0. Great. Okay, now I'd love to flip that to a 0. So I can just do negative row 2 plus row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write that out. So we got 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative 8/5 plus 1 is negative 3/5. And then we got negative 8 plus 2 is negative 6. Positive 12 plus 0 is 12. And then 0 plus 0 is 0. Now I'm going to zero this guy out. So we're going to multiply row 2 by 4, add it to row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write it out. So we got 4 times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. 4 times 1 is 4 plus negative 4 is 0. 4 times 8/5 is 32/5. And then plus negative 7, which is negative 35 over 5. That's negative 3/5. Okay. 4 times 8 is 32. Plus negative 56 is negative 24. 4 times negative 12 is negative 48, plus 0 is negative 48. 4 times 0 is 0, plus 168 is 168. Great, now we're down to the final column. Let's get that to a 1. And to do that, we're going to multiply by the reciprocal negative 5/3 times row 3. Let's check it out. So we got that times 0 is 0, that times 0 is 0, that times its reciprocal is 1. All right, negative 5/3 times negative 24. It's like dividing by 3, multiplying by negative 5. So that would be negative 8 times negative 5 is positive 40. Same with this. Divide by 3, 16, or negative 16, times negative 5 is positive 80. And then for this one, divided by 3 would be positive 56 times negative 5 is 150, 30, negative 280. All right, great. Now we just got to flip those two to zeros. First, let's flip the middle one. So we're going to do negative 8/5 times row 3 plus row 2 equals a new row 2. Let's write it out. So we got that times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. That times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1 times 1 is negative 8/5 plus 8/5 is 0. Okay, now we got these ones. Negative 8/5 times 40. That's divided by 5, which is 8 times negative 8 is negative 64 plus 8 is negative 56. This times 80 divided by 5 is 16, times negative 8 is negative 128, plus negative 12, negative 128, negative 140. And then we have that times negative 280. Hold on, let me write this out. This one's a little bit bigger. So that divided by 5, the negatives are going to cancel, first of all. That divided by 5, anything divided by 5, mental math trick is you can cut off a 0 and double it. So then it's going to be 56 times 8 is 448 plus 0. So that gives me 448 here. Now we're going to move it down, make a little bit more room so that in this final operation, we can also like write out the the inverse matrix separately. So now I got to flip that to a 0. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by positive 3/5, add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write it out. So we got 3/5 times 0 plus 1 is 1. 3/5 times 0 plus 0 is 0. 3/5 times 1 is 3/5 plus negative 3/5 is 0. That's what we wanted. Now we do 3/5 times 40 plus negative 6. That is 24 plus negative 6 is 18. Then times 80 is 48 plus 16 is 60. And then times negative 280, that's negative 56 times 3 is negative 168 plus 0 is negative 168. So then our final matrix inverse of this would be 18, 60, negative 168, negative 56, negative 144, 48. And then the bottom row is 40, 80, and negative 280. That's how you do it. Done. All right, so for this one, we're going to solve this using the inverse matrix method, which I have up here, just if you want to check the infographic and follow the steps. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to take this component and we're going to put it into a matrix. Then, as you can see in the infographic, we swap these two and then we negate those two, meaning flip the signs, right? That's what we've done from here to get to here. So we're going to do that next. So 5 and 3 switch places, and then the 4 goes negative, the 6 goes positive, and then we multiply by 1 over, and then see it's all written out here, it's all color-coded, right? It's 3 times 5, which is 15, minus negative 4 times 6, which is negative 24. So of course that turns into a plus, and then we got 1 over, that's going to be 39. Times all of this, which is 3, 6, negative 4, and 5. Great. Now, as we distribute this in, we're going to get our nice inverse matrix. And before we scroll down, remember this, right? Remember the negative 61 and the negative 2. That's in sort of this little tiny matrix. That's important because we're going to use that in a second. So now as we multiply this out, we get an inverse matrix of 1 over 39 times 3 is 1 over 13. 1 over 39 times 6 is 2 over 13. That times 4 is negative 4 over 39. And then times 5 is 5 over 39. All right. Then we multiply by this matrix, this negative 61 and negative 2. When we multiply it, the resulting matrix is going to give us our answers for x and y. So check this out. Now remember when we multiply, we're going to do a little color coding. So we got 1 over 13 times negative 61 plus 2 over 13 times negative 2. So that's negative 61 over 13 plus negative 4 over 13. And then on the bottom, we got negative 4 over 39 times negative 61 plus 5 over 39 times negative 2. So that's going to be 44 over 39, right? The negatives are going to cancel out. Plus 5 times negative 2 is negative 10 over 39. So now when we add those together, that is negative 65 over 13, and 244 plus negative 10 is 234 over 39. And both these simplify to, that one simplifies to negative 5. 234 divided by 39 is 6, right? 6 times 39 is 180 plus 54 is 234. So like that. And those are our two solutions. That's x, that's y. So in a coordinate, it'd be negative 5, comma 6. That's how you do it. Done. So for this problem, once again, I got this nice infographic up here that will give us the steps in case you need it. But the first thing is I got to take these values and put them in a matrix. So we got 3, negative 2, right? Just those coefficients, negative 1, and 5. Now, just like in the infographic, I'm going to swap these two. So that becomes 5 and 3. And then I'm going to negate these two. So it's going to be positive 1, positive 2. And then I'm going to multiply by 1 over the product of this, which is 15, minus the product of this, which is 2. So this is going to be 1 over 13. As we distribute it in, it's going to be 5/13, 2/13, 1 over 13, and 3 over 13. So that's our inverse matrix. Now to use this to solve, we need that little matrix, which is going to be 6 on top and -2 on the bottom. And we got to take the product of these two. So let's make some more room. So we're going to do a little color coding. Again, we got the top row times the columns, right? So 5 over 13 times 6 plus 2 over 13 times -2. So that's 30 over 13 minus 4 over 13. And then on the bottom, we have 1 over 13 times 6 plus 3 over 13 times -2. So that's 6 over 13 minus 6 over 13. Now, as we simplify this, 30 minus 4 is 26. 26 over 13 is 2. And then that's, of course, just going to be 0, which means our x solution is, and this means our x solution is 2, our y solution is 0. That's how you do it. Done. So for this one, we're going to start by putting it into that nice matrix format. So we're going to do that now. And when I talk about matrix, I'm talking about these four values, those coefficients. So we got -3, -4, 12, and 4. Now to switch it to the inverse, okay, you see in this infographic, we swap these two, and those two we negate from where they're at. So we got, let's write it out here, 4 up here, and then the -3 jumps down there, and then these two are negated, so we got -12 and +4. Okay, and then we multiply by 1 over the product of these guys minus the product of these guys, right? So we got 4 times -3 is -12 minus -12 times 4 is -48. So that's going to be 1 over -12 plus 48 is 36. So as we distribute this in like so, we get 4 over 36, which is 1/9, 4 over 36, which is again 1/9, -12 over 36, which is -1/3, and 1 over 36 times -3, which is -1/12. Okay, last but not least, we have to take that inverse and multiply it against this matrix of the answers of the constants on the other side, 9 and -6. So we're going to write that out top to bottom, 9, -6, and then we're going to multiply these two matrices to get our answer. So let's do that, and we'll color code it. So then we have 1/9 times 9 plus 1/9 times -6, which is 1 minus 2/3. And then we have 1/9 times 9 plus 1/9 times -6, which is 1 minus 2/3. And then here we have -1/3 times 9 plus -1/12 times -6. That is -3 plus 1/2. This means our final answer is 1 minus 2/3 is 1/3. -3 plus 1/2 is -2.5 or -2.5. And so the answer in XY coordinates is 1/3. And I'm going to put that in as -5/2, which is the same. That's just how they put it in the back of the book. So 1/3, -5/2. That's how you do it. Done. So for this one, I would normally start by putting it in a matrix, but look at all these fractions. I want to clear those fractions. So I'm going to multiply the top by 5 and the bottom by 10, which is, in either case, the least common denominator of each equation. So for the top one, multiply everything by 5, we get 8x minus 4y is equal to 2. On the bottom times 10, we get 10 times that, or 10 is divided by 5 is 2 times -8 is -16x. Then we get plus 2y, and then 10 times 7/10 equals 7. Now let's get it into matrix format, but right off the bat, let's just turn it into this inverse, okay? So what you do is you put in these two swapped, right? So 2 goes here, 8 goes here, and then these two go in but negated, right? So +16, +4, just like we see in the infographic here. And then we multiply by 1 over the product of these guys minus the product of these guys. So that's going to be 16 minus 64. So that's, of course, 1 over -48. So now let's get the actual inverse matrix over here. And that is this scalar times each of these. So we're going to put it in here. So -1 over 48 times 2 is -1 over 24. That one's going to be -1 over 12 times 16 is -1/3. And then times 8 is -1/6. Okay, now we take this and we multiply against the constants, but since we modified them, we got to do those two, 2, 7. So we multiply this against 2, 7. Now just making a little bit more room, and we're going to color code the multiplication process. Here we go. So we got -124 times 2 plus -112 times 7. That is -1/12 minus 7/12. And then on the bottom, we got -1/3 times 2 plus -1/6 times 7, that's -2/3 minus 7 6. So to simplify this, we get negative 1 minus 7 is negative 8 twelfths, which is negative 2 thirds. Over here, we got negative 2 thirds, which is the same as negative 4 6, minus 7 6, which is negative 11 6. And so here's the final answer: negative 2 thirds for x, negative 11 6 for y. That's how you do it. Done. So for this question, we're going to use the inverse of this matrix of the left side, right, to eventually calculate the solutions for x, y, and z. And we're going to have to multiply by that 21, 37, and 5, those constants. So first, let's put this in our nice matrix format. So here we got 3, negative 2, and 5 for that first row. Here we got 5 and 4. But since there is no z, that's got to be a 0. And then here we have 1, negative 2, and negative 5. Over here we have that nice identity matrix, the diagonals of 1s and then 0s all around. Okay, so the goal is to flip this to look like this, and then whatever comes here as a result will be our inverse matrix. So let's begin. First, let's flip that to a 1. I'm going to multiply the top row by 1/3 to get a new top row. Let's write it out. So we got 1/3 times 3 is 1. 1/3 times negative 2 is negative 2 thirds. 1/3 times 5 is 5 thirds. And then we got, again, 1/3 times 1 is 1/3 times 0 is 0 times 0 is 0. Great. Okay, now we're going to flip. Let's do this one next to a 0. That's going to be easy. Multiply row 1 by negative plus row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write it out. So we got negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Positive 2 thirds plus negative 2, which is negative 6 thirds, is negative 4 thirds. And then 1/3 times 5 thirds is, what is that, 5 ninths. Then we got negative 5 thirds plus negative 5. Negative 5 thirds. Negative 5 is the same as negative 15 over 3, and that's going to be negative 20 over 3. And then here we have negative 1/3 plus 0 is negative 1/3. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. Okay. Now I'm going to flip this to 0. So I'm going to do negative 5 times row 1 plus row 2 to get a new row 2. Let's write it out. So we got negative 5 plus 5 is 0. Positive 10 thirds plus 4, which is 12 thirds. That is 22 thirds. And then we have negative 25 over 3 plus 0 is negative 25 over 3. And then we have negative 5 thirds plus 0 is negative 5 thirds. We've got 0 plus 1 is 1, and 0 plus 0 is 0. There we go. Next, for the second column, let's flip that to a 1. So what we're going to do, we're going to make a little bit more room. I'm going to multiply row 2 by the reciprocal of that, which is 3 over 22. So let's multiply that by row 2. Let's write it out. So we got that times 0 is 0. That times its reciprocal is 1. That times, let's see, 3 over 22 times negative 25 over 3. Cancel, cancel. It's negative 25 over 22, like so. And then we got this times negative 5 thirds. The 3 cancels out, and it's negative 5 over 22. Then times 1 is 3 over 22, and times 0 is 0. Now we can start to flip these guys to 0. So I'm going to multiply row 2 by 2/3 and add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write it out. So we got 2/3 times 0 plus 1 is 1. 2/3 times 1 is 2/3 plus negative 2/3 is 0. 2/3 times negative 25 over 22, that's going to cancel out to 1 and 11. So that's negative 25 over 33 plus 5 thirds, which is times 11, 11 is 55 over 33. So that's going to be positive 30 over 33 or 10 over 11. Okay. Next, 2/3 times negative 5 over 22. That is going to cancel out to 1 and 11. So that's negative 5 over 33 plus 1 over 3, which is 11 over 33. That's going to be 6 over 33 or 2 over 11. And then 2/3 times 3 over 22 is 2 over 22 or 1 over 11 plus 0 is 1 over 11. And then times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. Next, let's get that to a 0. So I'm going to do 4/3 times row 2 plus row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write it out. So we got 4/3 times 0 plus 0 is 0. 4/3 times 1 is 4/3 plus negative 4/3 is 0. Beautiful. That's what I want. And then 4/3, now we got the annoying multiplication. 4/3 times negative 25 over 22. What is that? Negative 100 over 66, which is negative 50 over 33. So negative 50 over 33 plus negative 20 over 3, which is negative 220 over 33, right? 11 and 11 multiply. And then that gives us negative 270 over 33. Top and bottom can be divided by 3. That's negative 90 over 11. Then we got 4/3 times negative 5 over 22. That's negative 20 over 66, negative 10 over 33. Negative 10 over 33 minus 11 over 33. That's negative 1/3, right? Times 11 and 11. So that's negative 21 over 33. Divide top and bottom by 3. That's negative 7 over 11. Then we got 4/3 times 3 over 22. That's 4 over 22, or 2 over 11 plus 0 is that. And then times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. Okay, now we're on the last column. And again, I'd love to start by turning that into a 1. So I'm going to multiply by negative 11 over 90, aka the reciprocal. Let's do that now. So we got this times 0 is 0. This times 0 is 0. That times negative 90 over 11 is 1. Then this times negative 7 over 11. Negatives cancel out, so do the 11. So we got 7 over 90. Then we got 2 11ths times negative 11 over 90, which is going to be negative 2 over 90, or negative 1 over 45. And last but not least, times 1 is just negative 11 90ths. Last two steps, we got to flip these two to zeros. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply first row 3 by positive 25 over 22, add it to row 2 to get a new row 2. Here we go. So we got that times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0 plus times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1 times 1 is 25 over 22 plus that is 0. That's what we want. Okay. Now the trickier part. So we got 25 over 22 times 7 over 90. And then we're going to add that to negative 5 over 22. First, let's simplify this side. Divide these two by 5. And we got 18 and 5. So that's 35 over 396 minus. And then if I multiply this by 18 over 18, that's 90 over 396. That's going to be negative, what is that, 55? So negative 55 over 396. Both of these can be divided by 11, and you get negative 5 over 36. Next, we do 25 over 22 times negative 1 over 45 right here, right? Plus 3 over 22. So we can cancel these out, divide by 5. We got a 9 and we got a 5. So then we got negative 5 over 180 plus 18 is 198, right? 198, and then plus 3 over 22, multiply top and bottom by 9, and we get 27 over 198 plus negative 5 is 22 over 198. And both of these are actually divisible by 22, so that becomes 1 over 9. Last but not least, 25 over 22 times negative 11 over 90 plus that 0, so that's pretty chill. So then that divided by 5 is 5, that divided by 5 is 18. These two cancel out to 1 and 2. So then I have literally 5 over 36 negative. So we put that in here, 5 over 36 negative. Okay, we got one number to flip, that's this guy. So we're going to multiply row 3 by negative 10 11ths, and we're going to add it to row 1 to get a new row 1 for the final inverse. Here we go. So we got that times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. That times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0 times 1 is negative 10 11ths plus 10 11ths is 0. We're going to make a little bit of room for the calculations, but you can probably use a calculator for this as well. So negative 10 11ths times, let's see, 7 90ths, and then that's going to be plus 2 11ths. So let's simplify this. That's going to be 1 negative, and that's going to be 9. So then we got negative 7 over 99 plus 2 over 11, multiply top and bottom by 9, that's 18 over 99. And that's going to be 11 over 99, or 1/9. Then we got negative 10 over 11 times that is negative 10 over 99 plus 1/11, which is the same as 9 over 99. Then we have negative 10 over 11 times negative 1 over 45. Negative 1 over 45 like this. Let's simplify. Negatives are going to cancel out. Divide by 5, we got 2 and 9, so that's going to be 2 over 99. So 2 over 99 plus 1/11, which is 9 over 99, is going to be 11 over 99, which is the same as 1/9. Cool. And last but not least, negative 10 11ths times negative 11 over 90. And this is going to be plus 0. So these cancel out, negatives cancel out. 10 over 90 is 1/9 plus 0 is 1/9. Boom. So now we have our inverse matrix written out here. And what we have to do is we have to multiply it by 21, 37, and 5 in a single column matrix, 3-row matrix. So 21, 37, 5, we're going to write that down here. And now we're going to multiply these two matrices to get our final answer. So we're going to write it out here. And we're going to do a little color coding, make sure we have enough room, and let's go. 1/9 times 21 plus 1/9 times 37 plus 1/9 times 5. So that's 21 over 9, which is 7/3 plus 37 over 9 plus 5 over 9. I'm going to change that one back to 21 over 9 so they all have common denominators like so. Next, we got negative 5 over 36 times 21 plus 1/9 times 37 plus negative 5 over 36 times 5. So that is negative 105 over 36 plus 37 over 9 minus 25 over 36. And then last row, we got 7 over 90 times 21. That's going to be added to negative 1 over 45 times 37 plus negative 11 over 90 times 5. So that's going to be 147 over 90 minus 37 over 45 and then minus 55 over 90. Now we just got some good old-fashioned arithmetic to do, and then once we do that, we'll get our final answer. So 21 plus 37 is 58 plus 5 is 63 over 9. Okay, that's x. Then we got negative 105 minus 25 is negative 130 over 36 plus 37 over 9. Multiply top and bottom by 4. That's 120 plus 28 is 148. So we got 148 over 36. That's going to be 18 over 36 or 1/2. And then here we got 147 minus 55. That would be, let's see, 47, 8, 92 over 90 minus, and then if we doubled that, minus 74 over 90 to get common denominators. And 92 minus 74, that is 18 over 90. Now let's write this out in simplified form in parentheses in the coordinate format. So we got 7, 63 over 9 is 7. 1/2 is 1/2, and 18 over 90 simplifies to 1/5. So that is how you do it. Boom, done. So for this one, we're going to start by getting the inverse of this matrix. So we're going to have to put it into that nice matrix format. So let's do that now. And you see, we're going to take all these coefficients, right? 6, negative 5, negative 1, negative 1, 2, 1, and then 3, 3, 2. And then on this side, we're going to put in that nice identity matrix, which is 1s down the diagonal and then 0s all around. All right, now we're going to try and flip this to become this. And as we do that, we'll apply the row operations here as well. And we'll get the inverse. All right. Once we get the inverse, by the way, we'll multiply by these three numbers in their own matrix. Okay, so let's begin. First, I'm going to turn that 6 into a 1. So I'm going to multiply row 1 by 1, 6. Let's write it out. So we got 1, 6 times 6 is 1, times negative 5 is negative 5, 6, times negative 1 is negative 1, 6, and then times 1 is 1, 6 as well. Then we got double zeros. All right, next, we can flip this to a 0. I'm going to do that by taking row 1, adding it to row 2, and getting a new row 2. Let's write that out. So we got 1 plus negative 1 is 0. Negative 5, 6 plus 2 is 7, 6. The reason why 2 is because 2 is 12, 6, right? So minus 5, 6 is 7, 6. And then negative 1, 6 plus 1 is 5, 6. And then 1, 6 plus 0 is 1, 6. 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Next, I'd love to zero this one out. So what we're going to do is we're going to take row 1, multiply it by negative 3, add it to row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's do that now. So we got negative 3 plus 3 is 0. Positive 15 over 6, right? Negative 3 times negative 5, 6. 15 over 6 plus 3, which is 18 over 6. That's 33 over 6, or 11 over 2. Divide top and bottom by 3. And then we got negative 3 times that is 1/2 plus 2 is 2.5, or 5 over 2. Okay, negative 3 times 1, 6 again is negative 1/2 plus 0, negative 1/2. Times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. Next, we are going to get this one right here to become a 1. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal of 7, 6, which is 6, 7. So that times row 2. Let's write it out. So we got 6, 7, 7 times 0 is 0. 6, 7 times 7, 6 is 1. That times 5, 6 is going to be 5 over 7. And then we've got that times 1, 6, which is going to be 1 over 7. And then times 1 is just 6/7, and then times 0 is 0. Cool. Okay, now we can work on getting these ones to 0, this and this. So let's do row 1, because I think that's going to be a little easier. 5, 6 times row 2 plus row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write that out. So we have 5, 6 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. 5, 6 times 1 is 1 plus negative 5, 6 is 0. And then 5, 6 times 5 sevenths, that's 25 over 42. 25 over 42 plus that, which would be negative 7 over 42, right? Multiply top and bottom by 7. And that's going to be, what is that? 18 over 42, which is 9. Oh, wait, you can divide it by 6, right? 18 over 42. So that's 3 over 7. Write that there. Okay. Then we got... where are we at? 5, 6 times 1/7 is 5 over 42. Let's write that out. And we're adding that to 1, 6, which is the same as 7 over 42. So that's 12 over 42. Divide the top and bottom by 6, and that is 2 over 7. Okay. Then we've got 5, 6 times 6/7, which is going to be 5/7 plus 0 is 5/7. And then times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. Next, let's flip this one to a 0. So we're going to say negative 11 over 2 times row 2 plus row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write that out. So we got this times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. That times 1 is negative 11 halves plus that is 0, which is what we wanted. That times 5/7 is negative 55 over 14. And then that plus 5 over 2, which is the same as 35 14, and then that's going to be negative 20 over 14 or negative 10 over 7. Then we got negative 11 over 2 times 1/7 is negative 11 over 14 plus negative 1/2 or negative 7 over 14, which is negative 18 over 14. Divide top and bottom by 2, negative 9 over 7. Negative 11 halves times 6/7 is negative 66 over 14. Which is also negative 33 over 7. That plus 0 is just that. Then we got this times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. There we go. Okay, last column. Not bad. We got to flip that to 1 first. So I'm going to multiply by its reciprocal, negative 7/10 against row 3. Let's write it out. So we got negative 7/10 times 0 is 0. This one's 0 as well. Then that times this is 1. Okay, that's what we wanted. All right, negative 7/10 times negative 9/7. The 7s are going to cancel out, as are the negatives, so we'll get 9/10. Then we multiply by negative 33 over 7. 7s will cancel out. We get positive 33 over 10. And then that times 1 is just negative 7/10. Okay. Next, let's flip that to a 0. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by negative 5/7. Add it to row 2 to get a new row 2. Let's write it out. So we got negative 5/7 times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1 times 1 is negative 5/7 plus 5/7 is 0. Great. And then times 9/10 is negative 45 over 70 plus 1/7, which is the same as 10 over 70. So that's going to give us negative 35 over 70, which is just negative 1/2. Cool. Negative 5/7 times 33 over 10 is going to be, let's see, 1, 2, 14, 33, negative 33 over 14. And then we're adding that to 6/7, which is the same as 12/14. And that's going to give us negative 21 over 14, which is the same as negative 3/2. And then we got negative 5/7 times negative 7/10. Those are going to the 7s are going to cancel out, and that's going to be 1/2. And then 1/2 plus 0 is 1/2. Last but not least, we got to get rid of that guy. We got to turn it into a 0. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by negative 3/7 and add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write it out. So we got that times 0 plus 1 is 1. That times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. That times 1 is negative 3/7 plus 3/7 is 0. And then negative 3/7 times 9/10 is negative 27 over 70, and then plus 2/7, which is the same as 20 over 70. That's going to be negative 7 over 70, or negative 1/10. Next, we got negative 3/7 times 33 over 10, which is negative 99 over 70. And then that's added to 5/7, or 50/70ths. And that's going to be negative 49 over 70. Divide top and bottom by 7, and you get negative 7/10. And then last one, negative 3/7 times negative 7/10. The 7s will cancel out, and you get positive 3 over 10 plus 0 is 3/10. Okay, and now we have our inverse matrix. It's all of these values over here. And what we're going to do is we're going to take those values, we're going to write out that matrix, and then we're going to multiply it against those constants in the top equation. So I'm going to show you that in a second. So here we got our nice inverse matrix. Now we're going to go back to the original problem and check out these constants, right? 31, negative 6, 13. So here we got this times 31, negative 6, 13, and then we're going to get a final matrix down here, and that's going to have our answers. And we're going to color code this a little bit to make it easier. All right, we're going to go negative 1/10 times 31 plus negative 7/10 times negative 6 plus 3/10 times 13. So that is negative 31 over 10 plus 42 over 10 plus 39 over 10. Okay, we'll simplify that in a bit. Next, we go row 2, negative 1/2 times 31 plus negative 3/2 times negative 6 plus 1/2 times 13. So that is negative 31 over 2, and that is plus 18 over 2, which is 9. And then that is 1/2 of 13, which is 13 over 2. Last row, we got 9/10 times 31 plus 33/10 times negative 6 plus negative 7/10 times 13. So that is 9 times 31. What is that? 279, right? 279 over 10 plus negative 198 over 10, negative 198 over 10, and then plus negative 7 times 13, negative 7/10 times 13, that's negative 91 over 10. All right, let's simplify all of this. So up here we got negative 31 plus 42 is 11 plus 39 is 50. 50 over 10 is just going to be 5. Okay, that looks nice. Next, we got negative 31 over 2 plus 13 over 2. That's negative 18 over 2, or negative 9 plus positive 9. That gives us a 0. Now we got these big numbers. Let's add these two negatives together first. So negative 198 plus negative 91, that is negative 289 over 10. All right, negative 289 plus 279 is negative 10 over 10, which is going to simplify to negative 1. And there's our answer, 5, 0, negative 1. That's X, Y, and Z. That's how you do it. Done. So for this one, we're going to start by putting this into our nice matrix format, and we got to focus on finding the inverse of this matrix. So we got those coefficients 4, negative 2, 3, 2, 2, negative 9, right? X, Y, and Z. And then here there is no X, so we got to put in 0 for the X, then 6 and negative 4. On this side, we got that nice identity matrix with 1s down the diagonals and then 0s all around. And we're going to need to remember these three numbers later on. Once we get the inverse, we'll multiply it against a matrix of those three to get our solution. Okay, let's begin. First, we're going to flip everything in here to look like this, and then whatever shows up over here will then be the resulting inverse. So first I want to flip that to a 1. Let's multiply row 1 by 1/4. Let's write that out. So we got 1/4 times 4 is 1, 1/4 times negative 2 is negative 1/2, times 3 is 3/4, times 1 is 1/4, and then we got 0, 0. All right, next I'd love to flip that to a 0. Nice thing is this one's already a 0. So to get that to a 0, I'm going to multiply row 1 by negative 2 and add it to row 2 to get a new row 2. Let's write that out. So we got negative 2 plus 2 is 0, positive 1 plus 2 is 3. Negative 2 times that is negative 3/2 plus negative 9 is negative 10.5, which is the same as negative 21 over 2. And then we've got times 1/4 is negative 1/2 plus 0 is negative 1/2 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1 times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. There we go. Okay, great. So we got double zeros here. So column 1 is done. Now let's go to column 2. Let's flip that to a 1 first and foremost. Multiply row 2 by 1/3. Let's write it out. So we got 1/3 times 0 is 0. 1/3 times 3 is 1. 1/3 times negative 21 over 2 will give us negative 7 over 2. Then times Negative 1/2 is negative 1/6 times 1 is 1/3, and the 0 stays 0. Great. Now we need to flip that and that to 0. I'm going to start with row 1. We're going to multiply row 2 by 1/2 positive and then add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write that out. So we get 1/2 times 0 plus 1 is 1. 1/2 times 1 plus negative 1/2 is 0. 1/2 times negative 7/2 is negative 7/4, plus 3/4 is negative 4/4, aka negative 1. And then we've got that times negative 1/6, that's negative 1/12, plus 1/4, which is the same as 3/12. So that's positive 2/12 or 1/6. Then 1/2 times 1/3 is 1/6 again, plus 0 is 1/6, times 0 is 0, plus 0 is 0. Next, we got to flip that guy to a 0, so I'm going to multiply row 2 by negative 6 and add it to row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write it out. Negative 6 times 0 is 0, plus 0 is 0, times 1 is negative 6, plus 6 is 0. That's what we wanted. Then times negative 7 over 2, that's going to be positive 21, plus negative 4 is 17. Then times negative 1/6 is 1, plus 0 is 1, times 1/3 is negative 2, plus 0 is negative 2, and then times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. Now we're on the final column. What we got to do is we got to start by flipping that, or sorry, not that one. We got to start by flipping this guy to a 1. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal 1 over 17 against row 3. Let's write it out. So we got 0, 0, that times 17 is 1. That times 1 is 1 over 17, times negative 2 is negative 2 over 17, and then times 1 is 1 over 17. All right, we got two things left. First, let's get rid of that. That's going to be nice and easy. Row 3 is just going to be added to row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write it out. We got 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. 1 plus negative 1 is 0. Then we got 1 over 17 plus 1 over 6. So we're going to have to get common denominators. Multiply this one by 6 over 6. That should be 6 over 102. Multiply this one by 17 over 17. That's 17 over 102. You add those together, that's 23 over 102. Then for these two, right, same thing, I'm going to multiply by 6 over 6. That's negative 12 over 102. And then plus multiply this by 17 over 17. That's 17 over 102, which gives positive 5 over 102. And then last but not least, 1/17 plus 0 is 1/17. Last one, we got to flip that to a 0. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by 7/2 positive, add it to row 2. And we got a new row 2. Let's write that out. So we got 7/2 times 0 is 0, plus 0 is 0, times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1, times that is 7/2, plus negative 7/2 is 0. Great. Okay, now we got these crazy fractions. 7/2 times 1 over 17 is 7 over 34, plus negative, or minus, I should say, 1/6. So to get common denominators, we got to multiply this by 3 over 3, this one by 17 over 17. So that's going to give us 21 over 102 minus 17 over 102, which is 4 over 102, or 2 over 51. Next, times this is going to give us negative 7 over 17 plus 1 over 3. And to get common denominators, multiply this by 17 over 17, this by 3 over 3. So it's negative 21 plus 17 over 51. That's going to be negative 4 over 51. And then we got 7/2 times 1 over 17, that's 7 over 34. Plus 0, which is just 7 over 34. Great. Okay, this is the inverse matrix, so we're going to write that out here. Then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the very top of the problem and look at these three numbers again, negative 12, 33, and 1. So now we got everything written out, and what we're going to do is we're going to multiply across and get our final answer. So we're going to color code it. So first we got this times this, plus this times this, plus this times this. So dividing the top and bottom by 3, we're going to get 34, and then that's going to be negative 4 times 23, which is negative 92. And then dividing again top and bottom by 3, that's 5 times 11, which is 55 over 34. And then 1 over 17 times 1 is 1 over 17, but I'm going to give it a common denominator, 2 over 34. Next, we got this times this, plus this times this, plus this times this. So again, that's going to be dividing top and bottom by 3. We got negative 4 times 2 is negative 8 over 17. This one times 33, dividing top and bottom by 3, that's 11 times negative 4 is negative 44 over 17, and then plus 7 over 34. We'll get the common denominators afterwards. And then last row, we got this times this, plus this times this, plus this times this. So that's negative 12 over 17 minus 66 over 17 plus 1 over 17. Let's write this out and simplify it. So negative 92 plus 2 is negative 90 plus 55 is negative 35 over 34. So for this one, we got to convert both of these to 34. So that's negative 16 over 34. This one's going to be negative 88 over 34. So negative 88 plus negative 16 is negative 104. Plus 7 is negative 97 over 34. Last but not least, negative 12 minus 66 is negative 78. Plus 1 is negative 77 over 17. I'm going to double it and make it negative 154 over 34. Okay, the only reason why I'm doing that is because in the back of the book, they factored out 1 over 34, which is optional. You don't have to do that. You can leave it like that and put it in there as your 3 values. But just following that precedent. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have in parentheses have my 3 numerators, negative 35, negative 97, negative 154, and then just factored out a 1 over 34. So that's how they did that in the back of the book, if you're wondering. But there's your answer. There's your solution, X, Y, and Z. That, of course, with the multiplier of the 1 over 34. That's how you do it. Done. So for this one, we're going to start by clearing the fractions for all these before we put it in that nice matrix format. So for the top one, I'm going to multiply by 100. That's the least common denominator of 2, 5, and 100. For this one, I'm going to multiply by 40 for the second row. And for the third row, 5, 2, and 4, I'm going to multiply by 20. So now as we put this in our nice matrix format, we got 100 times a half is 50. 100 times negative 1/5 is negative 20. And then we got positive 20. And by the way, it's important to remember that these answers also change based on these multiplications, right? So we want to remember that our constants are now going to be 31, 7, and 5 over here. So we'll remember that for later. But anyways, next we got 40 times that, which is negative 30, negative 10. 40 times 1/2 is 20. And then we got 20 times negative 4/5, which is negative 16, negative 10. And then 20 times 3/2 is 30. And then we got our nice identity matrix in here. Boom, boom, boom. Diagonals of 1, zeros all around. And without further ado, let's begin. First, we're going to flip that to a 1. So multiplying row 1 by 1/5, we get the following. So first, we're going to flip that top 50 to a 1. So we're going to multiply by 1/50th. So 1/50th times row 1 gives us 1, negative 2/5, right, times negative 20. Positive 2/5. And then here we got 1 over 50, 0, 0. Great. Next, let's flip that to a 0. So we're going to multiply row 1 by positive 30 and add it to row 2 to get a new row 2. Let's write it out. So we got 30 plus negative 30 is 0. 30 times negative 2/5, that's negative 12, plus negative 10 is negative 22. 30 times positive 2/5 is positive 12, plus 20 is 32. And then 30 times 1/50th is 3/5, plus 0 is 3/5. Then we got 0 and 0. Adding to 1 is 1. Adding to 0 is 0. Cool. Now we got to flip that to a 0. So I'm going to multiply row 1 by 16, add it to row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write it out. So I got 16 times 1 is 16, plus negative 16, 0. 16 times negative 2/5 is negative 32/5. Which is being added to negative 10, which is the same as negative 50 over 5. That's negative 82 over 5. And then we got 16 times positive 2/5, which is 32 over 5, positive, plus 30, which is the same as 150 over 5. That's 182 over 5. And then we got 16 times 1/50th, that's 16 50ths, or 8 25ths plus 0, which is 8 25ths. Then we got times 0 is 0, plus 0 is 0, times 0 is 0, plus 1 is 1. Now I'd love to flip that to a positive 1, so I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, negative 1 over 22 times row 2. Let's write it out. So we got this times 0 is 0, that times negative 22 is 1, that times 32 is negative 32 over 22, which is negative 16 over 11, if we simplify it. Then times 3 is negative 3 over 110, then we got negative 1 over 22 times 1, right? And then just times 0 is 0. Next, I'd love to flip that to a 0. So we're going to multiply row 2 by 2/5 and then add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write it out. So we got 2/5 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. 2/5 times 1 is 2/5 plus negative 2/5 is 0. Beautiful. And then 2/5 times negative 16 over 11 is negative 32 over 55. And that is going to be added to 2/5, which I can multiply by 11 and make it 22 over 55. That's going to be negative 10 over 55 or negative 2 over 11. All right, great. So then we got 2/5 times negative 3 over 110, which is negative 6 over 550, plus 1 over 50, which I'll make 11 over 550, right? Multiply top and bottom by 11. And we get 5 over 550, which would be 1 over 110. Okay, a lot of work here. Then we got 2/5 times negative 1 over 22. That's negative 2 over 110, or negative 1 over 55 plus 0 is just that. And then times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. Next, we got to get this to a 0. So I'm going to multiply row 2 by positive 82 over 5. And then I'm going to add that to row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write it out. So now we got 82/5 times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. 82/5 times 1 is 1, or 82/5, excuse me, plus negative 82/5 is 0. All right, now we got some more complicated math. So we got 82/5 times negative 16 over 11. That's negative 1312 over 55 plus 182 over 5, which if you multiply by 11 over 11, you get 2002 over 55. And then you combine these and we get 690 over 55, or 138 over 11. Next, we got 82 over 5 times negative 3 over 110. That's negative 246 over 550. And then we got to add it to 8 over 25. And if I multiply top and bottom by 22, I get common denominators. I get 550 on top. 22 times 8 is 160 plus 16 is 176. That gives negative 70 over 550. Divided both by 10, we get negative 7 over 55. Then we got 82 over 5 times negative 1 over 22. That's negative 82 over 110, or negative 41 over 55 plus 0 is just that. And then this time 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. Now we're on the final column, which means the first order of business is to flip that to a 1. So we're going to multiply row 3 by the reciprocal, which is 11 over 138. Let's write that out. So then we got this times 0 is 0, this times 0 is 0, this times that is 1. And then 11 over 138 times negative 7, so it's going to be negative over 55. And then here and here we can cancel out, divide by 11, that's 1, that's 5. And then we get negative 7 over 690. Negative 41 over 55 times 11 over 138. Same thing, cancel, cancel. That's 5, that's 1. So that's negative 41 over 690. And then times 1 is just 11 over 138. Now we got to flip these last two to 0. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply row 3 by positive 16/11, add it to row 2 to get a new row 2. Let's write it out. So we got this times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1 times 1 is 16/11 plus that is 0. That's what we wanted. All right. Now we got 16/11 times negative 7 over 690. And then that's going to be added to negative 3 over 110. All right. These are crazy numbers. So that's going to be negative 112 over 7590. And to get this to be the same, we're going to multiply top and bottom by 69, which is 180 plus 20, negative 207 over 7590. That's going to give us negative 319 over 7590. And now we can divide the top and bottom by 11, and we get negative 29 over 690. Next, we do 16/11 times negative 41 over 690 plus negative 1 over 22. So again, 11 times 690 is 7590. 16 times negative 41 is negative 656. So to get 7590 here, we got to multiply top and bottom by 345 like so. And that's going to give us minus 345 over 7590. Negative 656 minus 345, that's negative 999. negative 1001 over 7590. Divide top and bottom by 11, and we get negative 91 over 690. Cool. And last but not least, 16/11 times, here, let's write that out, times 11 over 138. That one's nice and easy. They cancel out. And then plus 0, which is just 16 over 138, divided by 2, and you get 8 over 69. Now the final thing that we have to turn into a 0 is this negative 211. So I'm going to multiply 211s times row 3 and add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's do that now. So we got 211s times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1 times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0 times 1 is 211s plus negative 211s is 0. All right. Now we got 211s times negative 7 over 690 plus 1 over 110. So we got negative 14 over 7590 plus, this would be multiplied by 69 over 7590. Add those together. So then we get positive 55 over 7590. Divide top and bottom by 11, and we get 5 over 690. Divide top and bottom by 5, and we get 1 over 138. So then we have 2/11 times negative 41 over 690 plus negative 1 over 55. That's going to be negative 82 over 7590. And then to get a common denominator, multiply top and bottom by negative 138. So we get negative 130, or positive 138. So we get negative 138 over 7590. And these two added together are negative 220 over 7590. And then we divide top and bottom by 110, okay, and we get negative 2 over 69. Last but not least, 2/11 times 11 over 138 gives us 2 over 138, or 1 over 69. All right, great. There's our inverse matrix right here. It's this piece. And then we have to multiply it by this matrix up here, 31, 7, and 5. Now that we got this set up, let's do that multiplication, and we're going to do it color-coded. Let's make some room, and let's go. 138 times 31, negative 2 times 69, and 1 over 69 times 5, and we add those together, so we get 31 over 138 minus 14 over 69 plus 5 over 69. Then we got negative 29 times 31, negative 91 times 7, 8 times 5, and with those denominators. So 31 times 29 is negative 899 over 690. 7 times 91 is negative 637 over 690, and then plus 40 over 69. I'll go ahead and make that 690, add a 0 both spots. And then last but not least, we got this times this, plus this times this, plus this times this. So that is negative 210, negative 217 over 690. And then we got negative 287 over 690, and then 55 over 138. And all these are being added together. Okay. So now we need to get common denominators, right? So I'm going to double that to 28 over 138, double that to 10 over 138. So we got 31 minus 28, which is 3, plus 10 is 13 over 138. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to multiply the top and bottom by 5, and that's only because that's how they have it presented in the answers. So I'm going to make it 65 over 690. All right. Next, we've got negative 899 minus 637 plus 400, and I did it in the calculator, and it's negative 1136 over 690. And then last but not least, this one I'm going to get to 690 by multiplying it by 5 over 5, so that's 275 over 690. So we got negative 217 plus negative 287. That's negative 490, negative 504 plus 55, which is basically the same as 504 minus 55, but then the answer is going to be negative. So we got 14 minus 5 is 9, 4, and 4. So then we got negative 217 plus negative 287 plus that 275, right? Multiplying top and bottom by 5 to get a common denominator. And that's going to give us negative 229 over 690. Now to give this as they present it in the answer, they factored out the 1 over 690, and we're left with positive 65, negative 1136, and negative 229. So there's your x, y, and z. Of course, with that factor multiplied in would give those final answers. So that is how you do it. Done. So for this one, we're meant to use a calculator to solve the system of equations. So we're going to use Desmos, and we're going to plug the matrix in. We're going to calculate the inverse and then multiply it against -3, 2.3. So the matrix is going to be 2, -1 for x, and then 2 for y. And then we're going to get the inverse of this, and then we're going to multiply it by -3, 2.3. Let's do that in the calculator now. So you see I created matrix A as 2, -1, -1, 2. And then B is going to be -3, 2.3. And then what we're going to do for operations is we're going to take the inverse of A, and then we're going to multiply that by matrix B. Let's see what we get. Now, if I click this button, I'll turn it into fractions. That's how they have it in the back of the book, so let's do that. Now we get -37 over 30, 815. So -37 over 30, 815. That's how you do it. Done. So for this one, we're going to figure out the matrix of this. This is going to be a 3 by 3, and it's going to be 12.3, -2, -2.5, right? The coefficients of x, y, and z. Same thing for the second row, 36.9, 7, and -7.5. And then down here, we have 0 for x, and then 8, and -5. And we're taking the inverse of this, and we're going to multiply it against these constants, 2, -7, -10. Let's do that in Desmos now. So there you go. There's A, there's B. So we're doing inverse of A times B. And here are the answers, X, Y, and Z. So our final answer is 10 over 123, -1 and 2/5. And that's your X, Y, and Z. That's how you do it. Done. So for this one, to find the inverse, we're going to first get it set up like this, with that nice identity matrix on the right-hand side with that diagonal of diagonals of ones and then zeros all around. And now we're going to fill this one in here. And all we got to do is flip this to be this, right? So what does that mean? This has got to be a 0, that's got to be a 0, that's got to be a 0, and that's got to be a 0. So really just 4 moves, okay? So the first thing I'm going to do is let's get rid of that one. We need to drop that to a 0. So I'm going to say negative row 2 plus row 3 gets a new row 3. Let's write it out. So we got -0 plus 0 is 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. -0 plus 1 is 1, and -1 plus 0 is -1. Then we need -0 plus 0 is 0, -1 plus 0 is -1, 0 plus 1 is 1, 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay, next I'm going to work on my third column, and I'm going to get this and this guy to go to 0. And we're going to do that by multiplying row 3 by negative and adding it to row 1 to get a new row 1. I'm going to simultaneously also affect row 4 as well with that exact same addition. So let's write that out. So we got 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. +1 plus 0 is 1. Okay, now let's do over here. We got 0 plus 1 is 1. +1 plus 0 is 1. -1 plus 0 is -1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Now we got row 4. So we got 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. +1 plus 1 is 2. And then we got 0 plus 0 is 0. +1 plus 0 is 1. -1 plus 0 is -1. 0 plus 1 is 1. Now we got our last column. First, I want to flip that to a 1. So I'm going to multiply 1/2 times row 4. So just writing it up here, because it's a pretty straightforward thing, that's going to be 1. These are going to all be halves with that one being negative. So we got 1, 1/2, -1/2, and 1/2. Great. Okay, now we can start to flip these guys. First, I'm going to add row 4 to row 3 to get a new row 3. And in fact, I can actually go farther. Since these are pretty easy numbers to work with, I can clear this one and this one by just saying negative row 4 plus row 2 to get a new row 2, negative row 4 plus row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's do all of them together. Okay, so first working on row 3, we just have it straight up being added. So 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1, 1 plus -1 is 0. Then we got 0 plus 0 is 0, 1/2 plus -1/2 is -1/2, -1/2 plus 1 is +1/2, 1/2 plus 0 is 1/2. Okay, now to row 3. So we got 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1, 0 plus 0 is 0, -1 plus 1 is 0. And then over here, we got 0 plus 0 is 0, -1/2 plus 1 is 1/2, +1/2 plus 0 is 1/2, -1/2 plus 0 is -1/2. Now we got the first row, last one. So we got 0 plus 1 is 1, 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, and negative 1 plus 1 is 0. So we got that nice identity matrix here. And then now for the final row on this side. So we got negative 0 plus 1 is 1, negative 1 half plus 1 is 1 half. Positive 1 half plus negative 1 is negative 1 half, and then negative 1 half plus 0 is negative 1 half. So here's your inverse right there. What they did in the answer is they factored 1 half out of everything. So I'll do the same thing as well, and then I'll write up the final inverse matrix. So it's basically if I'm dividing everything by 1 half, it's like I'm doubling everything, right? So the 1 becomes a 2, all these 0 stays 0, and then all these get doubled to 1 or negative 1, right? So I have 1, 1, negative 1, 1. Same thing here. Negative 1, 1, 1, and negative 1. And last one, we got negative 1 for the top two, positive 1 for the bottom two. And that is how you do it. Done. So for this one, we're going to start by writing it out. So to find the inverse, we got to get this side to look like this side, and then whatever's left on the right-hand side is going to be the inverse. So we already got started in a good spot with that being 1. And so what I'm going to do next is I'm going to get that to a 0. I also need to get this to a 0. So we're going to do those two rows simultaneously just to save a little time. So to get row 3, we're going to do negative row 1 plus row 3 to get a new row 3. We're also going to do 5 times row 1 plus row 4 to get a new row 4. I'm only kind of combining steps here because it's just so much work. It's going to take so long otherwise. So let's do this now. So we got negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Positive 2 plus 4 is 6. Negative 3 plus negative 2 is negative 5. Negative 0 plus 3 is 3. Negative 1 plus 1 is negative 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. And 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Great. Okay, now we got this one. 5 times 1 plus negative 5 is 0. 5 times negative 2 is negative 10 plus 0, negative 10. 5 times 3 is 15 plus 1 is 16. 5 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. Then we got 5 plus 0 is 5. And then we got 0 plus 0, 0 plus 0, and 0 plus 1, which is 1. Great. Next, we already got a great 1 here. So I'm actually going to do 3 moves in 1. Okay, these are nice whole numbers. The math's not too complicated, so let's do it. So I want to flip this, this, and this to a 0 simultaneously. So we're going to do positive 2 times row 2 plus row 1 to get a new row 1. That's going to get that guy. Then we got negative 6 times row 2 plus row 3 to get a new row 3. Last but not least, we got positive 10 times row 2 plus row 4 to get a new row 4. Let's write it out. So we got 2 times 0 plus 1 is 1. 2 times 1 is 2 plus negative 2 is 0. 2 times 0 is 0 plus 3 is 3. 2 times 2 is 4 plus 0 is 4. 2 times 0 is 0 plus 1 is that. 2 times 1 is 2 plus 0 is 2. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. All right. Now we got negative 6 times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. Negative 6 plus 6 is 0. 0 plus negative 5 is negative 5. Negative 12 plus 3 is negative 9, right? Still just multiplying negative 6 times row 2, adding it to row 3. Here we got 0 plus negative 1 is negative 1. That's going to be negative 6 plus 0 is negative 6. 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. All right, last row, we're going to do 10 times this plus row 4. 10 times 0 is 0, so that's just 0. 10 plus negative 10 is 0. Beautiful. 0 plus 16 is 16. 20 plus 1 is 21. Then we got 0 plus 5 is 5. Then we got 10 plus 0 is 10. 0 plus 0 is 0. And 0 plus 1 is 1. Now I got to get this one to a 1. And in order to do that, I'm going to multiply the third row by negative 1/5. Okay, so let's write that out now. So we got 0, 0, positive 1, positive 9/5, positive 1/5, right? Negative 1/5 times negative 1. Negative 6 times that is 6/5. And then that times 1 is negative 1/5 times 0 is simply 0. Now we need to zero out this guy and this guy. So let's do again 2 rows in, so 2 operations in 1 move. So we'll say negative 3 times row 3 plus row 1 is going to give us a new row 1. And then negative 16 times row 3 plus row 4 is going to give us a new row 4. Let's write it out. So we got 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0, negative 3 plus 3 is 0, and then negative 27 fifths plus 4, which is 20 fifths, is equal to negative 7 fifths. And then we got negative 3 fifths plus 1 is 2 fifths. Then we got negative 18 fifths plus 2, which is 10 fifths, is going to be negative 8 fifths. Then we got 3 fifths, positive plus 0 is 3 fifths, and then 0 plus 0 is 0. Now for row 4, so we got 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, negative 16 plus 16 is 0, and then we got negative 144 over 5, that's 9 times 16, plus 21, which is the same as 105 over 5 multiplied by 5 over 5. And that's going to be, what is that, negative 39 over 5. So negative 39 over 5 goes here, okay? Then we got 16, let's see, negative 16 fifths plus 5, which is 25 fifths. That's going to be 9 over 5, right? So then we got negative 16 times that, that's negative 96 fifths, plus 10, which is 50 fifths, and that's going to be negative 46 over 5. And then we got negative 16 times that is positive 16 fifths plus 0, it's just that. And then negative 16 times 0 plus 1 is 1. Now we're on the final column, so I'd love to start by flipping that to a 1. So I'm going to multiply row 4 by that reciprocal, which is negative 5 over 39. Let's check it out. So I got that times 0 is 0 for all three. That times that is 1. That gives us our 1 there. And then now we got negative 5 over 39 times 9 over 5. 5's cancel out, and we got negative 9 over 39. Now I'm going to leave that denominator as 39. I'm not going to simplify the fraction because in the back of the book, they actually factor out 1 out of 39 at the end. So I'm going to leave it all like this, but you could simplify, it wouldn't be wrong. Next times this one, the 5's cancel out. We got positive 46 over 39. Then we got that times this, and the 5's cancel out. We got negative 16 over 39, and then times 1 is just itself, negative 5 over 39. Now we can start to flip this one by multiplying row 4 by negative 9 fifths, adding it to row 3. So we have 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 0 is 0, 0 plus 1 is 1, negative 9 fifths plus 9 fifths is 0. All right, now the fun part. Now we get negative 9 fifths times negative 9 over 39. That's 81 over 195 plus 1 fifth, which is the same as 39 over 195. Add those together. You get 120 over 195. Divide top and bottom by 5, and we get positive 24 over 39. Then we got this times this guy, negative 9 times 46. That is 360 plus 54, or 414, negative 414 over 195, and then plus 6 fifths. 6 times 39 is 180 plus 54 is 234, right? 234 over 195, just to get common denominators. And then that's going to be negative 180 over 195, which simplifies to, if you divide top and bottom by 5, negative 36 over 39. Then we're multiplying this times this, which is positive 144 over 195, plus negative 1/5, which is the same as negative 39 over 195. You subtract those two, you get 105 over 195. Divide top and bottom by 5, and you get 21 over 39. Last but not least, this times that. The 5's cancel out, so do the negatives. We get 9 over 39 plus 0 is 9 over 39. So we're going to multiply row 4 by negative 2 to add to 2 to flip that to 0. By the way, I had a mistake here. I had 4 fifths, just letting you know. I copied that down incorrectly. It should be negative 8 fifths, so now I've corrected it going forward. Anyways, so we got row 4. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. Okay, then we got positive 18 over 39 plus 0. That's 18 over 39. Here we got negative 92 over 39 plus 1, which is 39 over 39. That's going to be negative 53 over 39. Then we got negative 2 times that. That's 32 over 39 plus 0 is just that. And last but not least, negative 2 times that is 10 over 39 plus 0 is just 10 over 39. Last but not least, we're multiplying row 4 by 7 fifths to add to row 1 to get a new row 1. So let's check it out. 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 0 is 0. 7 fifths plus negative 7 fifths is 0. All right, now we have this section. So 7/5 times negative 9 over 39, that's negative 63 over 195, plus 2/5, which is the same as times 39 over 39, 78 over 195. Add those together, you get 15 over 195, which you can divide top and bottom by 5, and then you get 3 over 39. Then we have 7/5 times that. 7 times 46, that's 280, plus 42 is 322 over 5 times 39, which is 195, plus negative 8/5 times 39 over 39 is 195 on the bottom. 8 times 39 is 240, plus 72 is 312. So that's going to be 10 over 195, dividing top and bottom by 5, that's 2 over 39. Then we got 7/5 times this. 7 times negative 16 is 70, plus 42 is negative 112 over 195, plus 3/5. 3 times 39 is 90, plus 27 is 117. 5 times 39 is 195. That's why we did it, because of the common denominators. Then we get 5 over 195, or 1 over 39. Last but not least, multiply it by that guy. The 5's cancel out, and we get negative 7 over 39. Plus 0 is just that. Okay, we did it. We got the inverse, so let's check it out. I'm going to factor out the 1 over 39 because they all have that denominator, just like in the answers. You don't have to. That's already correct, but let's do it just like they did it. And then what we have left is 3, 2, 1, negative 7, 18, negative 53, 32, and 10. Third row is 24, negative 36, right? It's just all those numerators, 21 and 9. Last row is 9, negative 46, negative 16, and negative 5. And that is how you do it. Done. All right, this one to find the inverse, this looks like a doozy, but I don't think it's actually going to be as bad as it looks. So for this one, it looks pretty crazy, but really, we've almost got that nice identity matrix on the left-hand side, which means all we have to do is flip these all to zeros, okay? And I actually don't think it's going to be that bad now that I think about it, because what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be first multiplying row 1 by a negative. I'm going to add it to row 6 and get a new row 6. So that's going to zero out this one. And then we're going to do that on repeat. So for example, the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add row 2 negated to row 6 to get a new row 6, right? That's going to negate that 1 to a negative 1. Everything else is going to stay 0. Add it to there. It's going to knock that out, right? So we can kind of do this on repeat. So you see we're doing this for every row 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we're adding it to row 6. So let's write that out now. So what we can see here is, right, we negate row 1 and add it to row 6. So that negative 1 is going to add to the 1. And everything else is going to be 0. So we're going to say negative 1 plus 1 is 0. And then all these other 1s are going to stay there, right? But we're going to leave it alone right now. We're not going to fill those in because I'm going to do all 5 of these operations in one go. Now, likewise, this is going to be negated, and that's going to add to here, and that's just going to be negative 1, okay? Next, we got negative 1 here, plus that 1 is 0. And then the same thing's going to happen here. Negative 1 plus 0 is negative 1. So you can kind of see this trend continue. That's going to be, right, negated plus 1 is 0. That's going to be negated plus 0 is negative 1. So you're going to have a 0 here, a negative 1 here as well. 0 here, a negative 1 here as well. And then this one right here is going to be unchanged. So as we know with these matrices, what we have on the right-hand side is the inverse. So this is your final answer. That's how you do it. Done. So for this one, they're saying to look back to 52. And 52, they say 2,400 tickets were sold for a basketball game. And if the prices for floor 1 and floor 2 were different, and the total amount of money is this, how much is the price of each ticket? So in this one, we can start by saying that, you know, X plus Y is equal to 2,400, right? But the thing is, we don't really need any sort of systems, right? I could say, for example, we know that there's 400 more here than here, right? So I know that I actually already know that the amount is 1,400 tickets sold here and 1,000 tickets sold here. It's the only way it's going to work, right? If we have 400 more here than here. But now we're trying to find the price of the ticket. So I know the amount, now we're trying to find the price, and everything is equal to 64,000. So we'd have 64,000, and then we have 1,000 for floor 1. And let's make the unknowns for the prices, let's make it W and Z, okay? So we got a 1,000 W plus 1,400 Z, right? Those are the prices equal 64,000. But what you can see is we don't have another equation really that we can draw in here. This is it. We've got our two different variables, and in order to get an answer for this, we need a second equation. If we have two variables, we need two equations, and since we don't, this is going to have infinite combinations. For example, W could be 64, that could be 0, or this could be $10, right? That'd be 14,000, and this could be 50, right? So on and so forth. So the bottom line is there are infinite solutions to this setup. There's just not enough limiting factors. So that's how you do it. Done. Students were asked to bring their favorite fruit to class. 95% of the fruits consisted of banana, apple, and oranges. If oranges were twice as popular as bananas and apples were 5% less popular than bananas, what are the percentages of each individual fruit? Okay, so we could use B, A, O for the variables, but I'm just going to say X, Y, Z just to follow the protocol we've been following up till now. And now let's establish these relationships. So we've got oranges are twice as popular as bananas. Then it says apples were 5% less than bananas, which is X. Now we got some good relationships. And by the way, it's important to note here that X, Y, and Z, they are representing percentages, right? But there's one other percentage that we haven't represented yet, which is the sum, right? All of them added together is 95. X plus Y plus Z equals 95. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're going to get this into proper format so we can easily plop it into a matrix. So for this one, I'm going to subtract Z from both sides. I'm going to make it 2X minus Z is equal to 0. For this one, I'm going to add 5 to this side and subtract Y. So I have X minus Y equal to 5. And then down here, we're going to leave it as is, right? X plus Y plus Z is equal to 95. Now we're going to put it into that matrix format. So I'm going to show you how to do that now. So again, we've got that nice identity matrix here. And then we take the coefficients for X, Y, and Z. So we got X is 2, Y is 0, Z is -1. Then we've got here, we've got 1, -1, and 0 for Z, so like that. And then here we got 1, 1, and 1. And we got to remember that these values here, the constants, they're very important. And at the end, we're going to need to multiply our inverse against them, 0, 5, and 95. Okay. My first step is going to be to get this to a 1. So I'm going to multiply row 1 by 1/2. Let's write it out. So we got 1, 0, -1/2, positive 1/2, and then 0, 0. Next, let's flip that to a 0 and that to a 0. Let's do that in one go. We're just going to do negative row 1 plus row 2 equals a new row 2, and negative row 1 plus row 3 equals a new row 3. Let's write it out. So we got -1 plus 1 is 0. 0 plus -1 is -1. Negative, or positive 1/2, I should say, plus 0 is 1/2. -1/2 plus 0 is -1/2. And then 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay. Now we have -1 plus 1 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. Positive 1/2 plus 1 is 3/2. Then we got -1/2 plus 0 is -1/2. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. Great. So look at this. We got that first column is perfect. Now I want to get that middle value to a positive 1. Let's just multiply row 2 by -1. So we got 0 stays 0. That goes to positive 1. That goes to -1/2. That goes to positive 1/2. That goes to -1. And that goes to 0. Great. Now we can flip that by doing negative row 2 plus row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write it out. So we got 0 plus 0 is 0. -1 plus 1 is 0. Positive 1/2 plus 3/2 is 2. And then we got -1/2 plus -1/2 is -1. Positive 1 plus 0 is 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. Okay, now we're on the last column because this one's already good to go. So now we just got to first flip that to a 1. I'm going to do that by multiplying row 3 by 1/2. Let's write that out. So we got 0, 0, 1/2 of 2 is 1, and then 1/2 all of these is either -1/2 or the other two are positive 1/2. Great. Now we got two last ones to go, and I'm going to do this in one step because it's the same thing happening both times, right? It's 1/2 R3 plus R1 is a new R1, and then the same thing, 1/2 R3, except we're adding it to R2 to get a new R2. Let's write it out. So then we got 1/2 0 plus 0 is 0 plus 1 is 1. 1/2 of 1 is 1/2 plus negative 1/2 is 0. Then we've got negative 1/4 plus 1/2 is 1/4. 1/4 plus negative 1 is negative 3/4. And then 1/4 plus 0 is 1/4. Okay, now the top and final row, we got 0 plus 1 is 1, 0 plus 0 is 0, 1/2 plus negative 1/2 is 0. All right, then we got negative 1/4 plus 1/2 is positive 1/4. Then we got positive 1/4 plus 0 is 1/4, and same over here, 1/4 plus 0 is 1/4. All right. Now we got the inverse matrix, so we're going to write that out. And we're going to multiply it against this guy, 0, 5, 95. And now we're going to get our answer over here ready to go. We're going to do a little color coding, and we got this times this, plus this times this, plus that times that, which is 0 plus 5/4 plus 95 over 4. Then we got this times this, plus this times this, plus this times this. That is going to be 0 minus 15/4 plus 95 over 4. And then we got this times this, plus this times this, plus this times this, which is 0 plus 5 over 2 plus 95 over 2. And now we can simplify all of these. So 5/4 plus 95/4 is 100/4 divided by 4 is 25. Here we have negative 15 plus 95 is 80. 80 over 4 is 20. And here we have 5 plus 95, which is 100. 100 over 2 is 50. So as you recall, X was bananas, Y was apples, and Z was oranges. We can say 25% bananas, 20% apples, and 50% oranges. There you go. That's how you do it. Done. A clothing store needs to order new inventory. It has 3 different types of hats: straw, beanies, and cowboys. The straw hat is $13.99, beanie is $7.99, and cowboy is $14.49. If 100 hats were sold this past quarter, $11.19 was taken in by sales, and the amount of beanies was 10 more than cowboys. Okay, so now we got 3 relationships and 3 variables. So let's write this out. We'll say straw, beanies, and cowboy. Okay, and we're going to say X, Y, and Z. This is arbitrary, but let's just assign variables. Okay, it's important to note that this is the number of straw hats, number of beanies, number of cowboy hats. So now we can come up with some nice equations. We know that $13.99 times the number of straw hats plus $7.99 times cowboy plus, what is that, $14.49 times Z. That's going to equal the total amount of money that they brought in, which is $11.19. Great. Okay. Next relationship. The quantity X plus Y plus Z is simply 100. And their last relationship is, it says that the amount of beanies was, which is my equal symbol, right? The to be verb, equals 10 more than the cowboy hat. So I wrote this one up here because I'm going to modify it first. I'm going to subtract Z from both sides. So I got Y minus Z equals 10. Okay. Now we got our 3 equations. Now we can put it in our nice matrix format. So we've got $13.99, $7.99, and $14.49 over here. Then we got 1, 1, 1 for X, Y, and Z. And then we got 0 for X, 1 for Y, and negative 1 for Z. And then we got our nice identity matrix over here. So once again, to get the inverse, we're going to try and make this look like this. And then whatever we have over here is the inverse. And then we're going to multiply our inverse by these constants over here, the 1, 1, 1, 9, 100, and 10. So we're just going to leave this up here for now, and we're going to come back to it later. Okay, so let's start this off. Now, the first thing I usually like to do is I like to flip this guy to a 1. So to do that, I'm going to do 1 over 13.99 times row 1. Let's write that out. So we got 1 over 13.99 times that is 1 times that is 7.99 over 13.99. Over here, it's going to be 14.49 over 13.99. Over here, it's going to be 1 over 13.99. And then times 0 is 0 times 0 is 0. Great. Next, I would love to flip that to a 0. So I'm going to do negative row 1 plus row 2 to give a new row 2. Let's write that out. So we got negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative that plus 1 is going to be 6 over 13.99. The reason why is because this becomes 13.99 over 13.99, and then negative 7.99 plus that just gives us 6, and then this negated plus 1 is going to give us negative 0.5 over 1399. Negative this plus 0 is that. And then we got 0 plus 1 is 1, 0 plus 0 is 0. Great. Next, we're moving on, and I'd like to flip this one to 1, because now we're done with the first column. We got to work on the second column. So I'd like to get the 1s next. So I'm going to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 1399 over 6. Let's write that out. So we got that times 0 is 0. That times that is 1. That's great. Okay, now this times negative 0.5 over 1399. These are going to cancel out. Negative 0.5 over 6 is the same as negative 1 over 12. Okay. Then we got this guy times negative 1 over 1399. These are going to cancel again, and then we're just left with negative 1/6. Great. Okay, and then this times 1 is just 1399 over 6, and then times 0 is 0. Next, let's flip that to a 0. That's pretty straightforward. We're just going to do negative row 2 plus row 3 to get a new row 3. So we got 0 plus 0 is 0. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Positive 1/12 plus negative 1 is negative 11/12. And then we got positive 1/6 plus 0 is 1/6. Negative 1399 over 6 plus 0 is that. And then 0 plus 1 is 1. Great. Now I'm going to flip that to a 0. And we're going to do that by multiplying negative 799 over 1399 times row 2 plus row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write it out. So we got 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 799, whatever, plus that. They're opposites, so it zeroes out. Beautiful. Okay. Now we got the fun one. We got this times negative 1 over 12. 12 times 1399 is actually 167.88. These numbers are so bad. And the negatives are going to cancel out, and then it's positive 799 on top. And then we got to add it to this crazy thing. So again, we're going to have to multiply top and bottom by 12. And we get 173.88, and these two added together, that gives us 181.87 over 167.88. Next, we got negative 799 over 1399 times negative 1/6. That's positive 799 over 83.94 plus, if you multiply this by 6 over 6, you're going to get plus 6 over that same denominator, which is going to give us 1399 over 83.94. This is just, these numbers, bad. Okay, then we got this times that. Well, the nice thing here is the 1399s are going to cancel out. And then you're just left with negative 7.99 over 6 added to 0 is just that. And then we got this times 0 is 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay, now we're on the last column. First things first, let's flip that to a 1. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by that reciprocal. Let's write it out. So we got times 0 is 0 times 0 is 0 times this is the reciprocal, so it's 1. Okay, now we have times that. That's going to be negative 2 over 11. So when I actually multiply this guy times this guy, it's going to give some decimals and this and that, but I'm going to actually go ahead and give you the fraction version from a calculator with everything in whole numbers. That's going to be 1399 over 550, positive, right? Because the negatives cancel out. And then this times 1 is just negative 12/11. It's great. Next, we're going to zero this guy out. So I'm going to do 1/12 times row 3 plus row 2 gives me a new row 2. Let's write it out. So we got 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. Then we got 1/12 plus negative 1/12 is 0. Great. Okay, now we have 1/12 times negative 2 over 11, which is negative 2 over 132, plus negative 1/6, which is negative 22 over 132. So that's negative 24 over 132 divided top and bottom by 12. You get negative 2/11 again. Next, I'm going to do 1/12 times 1399 over 550 plus 1399 over 6. And then when you simplify this out in a calculator and get a nice fraction with whole numbers, it's the same as this. It's again 1399 over 550. Beautiful. And then 1/12 times that, the 12s are going to cancel out. It's negative 1/11 plus 0 is negative 1/11. All right, we're on the last one, and now we got to flip this to a 0. So I'm going to multiply row 3 by negative 181.87 over 167.88. Add it to row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write it out. So we got 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Negative, whatever that is, plus its opposite is 0. Okay. All right, now the crazy part, right? We got to do all these crazy fractions. So I'm going to write them out, but if you can do them in a calculator, it's much easier. So we got this thing times negative 2/11 plus this thing, and you get 0.3636 repeating, which is the same as 4/11. Next, we got this thing multiplied against this thing, okay, which is that over 550, and then we're adding it to negative 799 over 6. I'm going to do that in my calculator. And we get negative 4.0872, whatever, and then, but as a fraction is negative 1124 over 275. Okay, last one. We got this crazy thing times this plus 0. So we get 1.18 repeating, which as a fraction is 13/11. All right. Here's the inverse, and we got to multiply that inverse against this guy, okay, this little matrix here. All right, we're going to color code it. We got this times this plus this times this plus this times this, and then we got this times this plus this times this plus this times this, and then we got this times this plus this times this plus this times this. Okay, this is a lot of calculation, and what you end up with is 10, 50, and 40. So it is 10 straw hats, okay, 50 beanies, and the last one is cowboy hats, 40 cowboy hats. So that is how you do it. Done. 3 roommates shared a package of 12 ice cream bars, but no one remembers who ate how many. Okay, we got Micah ate twice as many as Joe, and Albert ate 3 less than Micah. Okay. So let's get some equations to represent all this. So I got X for Micah, Y for Joe, and Z for Albert. So it said we got 12 ice cream bars. So of course, X plus Y plus Z, the amount they ate, is equal to 12. And then it said Micah ate, that's my verb, is twice as many as Joe, and Albert ate, or is 3 less than Micah. Check it out. We got a nice little system of equations. So what I'm going to do with this equation is I'm going to minus 2y from both sides and set that equal to 0. And then for this one, I'm going to minus x from both sides. Negative x plus z is equal to negative 3. Okay. Now I can put this in a nice little matrix. For the top one, we got 1, 1, 1, right? 1, 1, 1 for the coefficients. For this one, we got 1, negative 2, and z is 0. And for the last one, we got negative 1, y is 0, and then we got z is 1. And remember, our final matrix with all these nice constants is going to be 12, 0, and negative 3. So we got to remember that. On the right-hand side, we're going to put that nice identity matrix. And once again, just as a reminder, to get the inverse, we got to flip this to look like this. And then whatever is going to be over here is going to be our inverse. And then we're going to multiply it against that to get our final answers. Okay. I love how this already starts out with the 1. We got to flip this and this to zeros. Let's do that in one nice step. So I'm going to do negative R1 plus R2 to get a new R2, and regular R1 plus R3 to get a new R3. Let's write that out. So we got negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative 1 plus negative 2 is negative 3. Negative 1 plus 0 is negative 1. And then we got negative 1 plus 0 is negative 1. 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. And then we got 1 plus negative 1 is 0. 1 plus 0 is 1. 1 plus 1 is 2. 1 plus 0 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. All right, so far these numbers are pretty chill. And we already finished the first column. Now, unfortunately, we got to flip that to a 1, which means we need a fraction in the mix. Let's do that now, times row 2. Times 0 is 0, times negative 3 is 1. Beautiful. Times negative 1 is 1/3. And then over here we got 1/3, negative 1/3, and 0. Great. Okay, now let's flip both of these to zeros, and we can do that kind of in one fell swoop, right? We can say negative row 2 plus row 1 to get a new row 1, and negative row 2 plus row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write it out. So we got 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative 1/3 plus 1 is 2/3. Negative 1/3 plus 1 is 2/3. Positive 1/3 plus 0 is 1/3. 0 plus 0 is 0. Okay. Then we got 0 plus 0 is 1. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Negative 1/3 plus 2 is 5/3. Negative 1/3 plus 1 is 2/3. Positive 1/3 plus 0 is 1/3. 0 plus 1 is 1. Great. Now we're on the last column. First, let's flip that to a 1 by multiplying, by the reciprocal, 3/5 times row 3. Let's write that out. So we got this times 0 is 0. That times 0 is 0. That times 5/3 is 1. That times 2/3 is 2/5. Times 1/3 is 1/5. And then times 1 is 3/5. Great. Now we got two things left, okay? And let's do that again in one one step. And the reason why I'm doing it kind of like this is like these numbers aren't too crazy. So I'm chill with doing it like that. If that confuses you, you can break it up and do it step by step. But I got negative 1/3 times row 3 plus row 2 equals a new row 2. And then for the top, negative 2/3, times row 3 plus row 1 to get a new row 1. Let's write this out. So we got 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 1/3 plus 1/3 is 0. Then we got negative 2/15 plus 1/3, which is 5/15, is 3/15 or 1/5. Then we got negative 1/15 here plus negative 1/3, negative 1/15. That would be minus 5/15. That's negative 6/15, which is negative 2/5. And then we got negative 1/3 times 3/5 is negative 1/5 plus 0 is just negative 1/5. Great. Okay, now we can look at this top row. So we got 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Then we got negative 2/3 plus 2/3 is 0. Negative 4/15, right? This times negative 2/3 plus 2/3, which is 10/15. Is 6/15, which is 2/5. Then we got negative 2/3 times 1/5, which is negative 2/15 plus that's 1/3, which is 5/15. That's 3/15 or 1/5. And then last but not least, negative 2/3 times that is negative 2/5, right? The 3's cancel out, plus 0 is negative 2/5. Okay, we got our inverse matrix, and we need to multiply it by this nice one up here, 12, 0, negative 3. So we're going to do a little color coding. This times this, plus this times this, plus this times this. That is 24 over 5 plus 0 plus 6 over 5. Next row, we've got this times this, plus this times this, plus this times this. That is 12/5 plus 0 plus 3/5. And you notice it's going to be nice whole numbers, so that's a good sign. Then we got this times this, plus this times this, plus this times this. That is 24/5 again, plus 0, plus negative 9/5. Okay, as we simplify this out, we get 24 plus 6 is 30, divided by 5 is 6. Then we've got 12 plus 3 is 15 over 5, which simplifies to 3. And then 24 plus negative 9, that is 15 over 5, which simplifies to 3. So that means Micah had 6 at the top, Joe had 3, and Albert ate 3. And again, all that adds up to 12. That's how you do it. Done. Jay has lemon, orange, and pomegranate trees. I have a pomegranate tree. An orange weighs 8 ounces, 5 ounce, and lemon weighs 5, and a pomegranate weighs 11. Jay picked 142 pieces of fruit, weighing a total of 70 pounds, 10 ounces. Yikes. Ooh, I don't like those mixed units. Okay, he picked 15.5 times more oranges than pomegranates. Okay. So first, let's get nice variables. Lemons, oranges, and pomegranate. Pomegranate's my favorite fruit, or one of them. We got X, Y, and Z. Okay, so the first equation we can make is about the weight, right? And look at this little sneaky thing. It says orange first, but here it says lemon first. So just be careful of that. So it's 8 ounces times the number of oranges plus 5 ounces times the number of lemons plus 11 ounces times the number of pomegranates, and that equals the total weight of 70 pounds, 10 ounces. But we want to convert it to ounces because everything is in ounces. So 70 times 16 ounces in a pound is 1120 plus 10 is 1130. That's one equation. All right, next we have the number of each of them added up is 142. That's the total pieces of fruit. Last but not least, it says 15.5 times the number of, or more oranges than pomegranates. So that means 15.5 times Z is equal to Y. And I'm putting it up here because I want to manipulate it before I put it down here. I'm going to subtract 15.5Z from both sides and set it equal to 0. And now I've got the perfect equations to put this into a nice matrix. So I got 5, 8, and 11. Here I got 1, 1, 1, and then here I got 0 for x, 1 for y, and negative 15.5 for z. Here I'm going to have my nice identity matrix. And over here, I'm going to have this with these constants, just to remember that at the end, whatever my inverse is, I'm going to multiply it by this. And to get the inverse, I'm going to make this look like this, and then the inverse will be here. Okay. Let's begin. First thing I'm going to do, actually, which, normally I don't do this a ton, but I'm going to do a little switcheroo. I'm going to make row 2 go to row 1, and then I'm going to make row 3 go to row 2, and obviously that means row 1 has to go to row 3. So row 2 is going to go to row 1, so we got 1, 1, 1, and then we got 142 is now at the top. Row 3 is going to go to row 2, so now we have 0, 1, negative 15.5, and then 0 is going to go into the middle. And then over here, we have row 1 at the bottom, so 5, 8, 11, and then we got 1130 on the bottom. Okay, so this is pretty good. Next, I want to work on this first column still, and I want to get that to a 0. So we got negative 5 times row 1 plus row 3 is going to be the new row 3. Let's write it out. So we got negative 5 plus 5 is 0. Negative 5 plus 8 is 3. Negative 5 plus 11 is 6. Negative 5 plus 0 is negative 5. 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. Great. Okay. That first column is done. So now what I'm going to do is, and I already got a 1 here, which is amazing. So now I got to flip that and that to 0. Let's do that in one move. So I got negative row 2 plus row 1 to get a new row 1, and negative 3 row 2 plus row 3 to get a new row 3. Let's write that out. So we got 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 1 plus 1 is 0. Positive 15.5 plus that is positive 16.5. 0 plus 1 is 1. Negative 1 plus 0 is negative 1. And 0 plus 0 is 0. Now we got down here, negative 3 times 0 is 0, plus 0 is 0. Negative 3 plus 3 is 0. That negative 3 times this is 46.5, plus 6 is 52.5. 0 plus negative 5 is negative 5. Negative 3 plus 0 is negative 3. And 0 plus 1 is 1. Okay. Now we're on that final column. And first things first, we got to flip that to a 1. And I'll multiply it by its reciprocal. Okay. So we got that times 0 is 0. That times 0 is 0. That times that is 1. That times negative 5 is negative 5 over 52.5, which is the same as negative 10 over 105. Divide the top and bottom by 5, we get negative 2 over 35. Divide the top and bottom by 5, we get negative 2 over 21. Then we got this times negative 3. That can be negative 6 over 105. Divide top and bottom by 3, we get negative 2 over 35. And then this times 1 is just that. To get rid of that decimal, we'll just double it to 2 over 105. Great. Now we got two things to get rid of. So first I'm going to do 15.5 times row 3 plus row 2 equals a new row 2, and negative 16.5 times row 3 plus row 1 to get a new row 1. Here we go. So we got 0 plus 0 is 0. 0 plus 1 is 1. 15.5 plus negative 15.5 is 0. Okay. Now we got these a little bit more tricky ones. So negative 2 times 15.5 is negative 31 over 21 plus 0 is just that. Then we got 15.5 times negative 2 is again negative 31 over 35 plus 1, which is 35 over 35. That's going to be 4 over 35. And then 15.5 times 2 over 105 is 31 over 105 plus 0 is just that. But we should try and reduce it if possible, but we cannot, so it stays as is. Then we got 0 plus 1 is 1. 0 plus 0 is 0. Negative 16.5 plus 16.5 is 0. Okay, now we got it times this, which is 33 over 21 positive plus 1, which is 21 over 21. That's 54 over 21. Divide top and bottom by 3, and you get 18 over 7. Then we got that times negative 2. That's, again, 33 over 35 plus negative 1, which is negative 35 over 35, which would be negative 2 over 35. Last but not least, this times 2 is negative 33 over 105 plus 0. Divide top and bottom by 3 is negative 11 over 35. Okay, now we got our inverse matrix, and then we remember we got this that we have to multiply it against. Now let's do a little color coding. So we got this times this plus this times this plus this times this. That's going to be 2556 over 7 plus 0 plus negative 12430 over 35. Big numbers, but it's going to simplify nicely. Then we got this times this plus this times this plus this times this. That's going to be negative 4402 over 21 plus 0 plus 35030 over 105. And last but not least, this times this plus this times this plus this times this. Okay, this one I can do a little easier mentally. So that's negative 284 over 21 plus 0 plus 2260 over 105. Okay, once we simplify all of this, we get 350 over 35, which is 10. We get 13,020 divided by 105, which reduces to 124. And then we get 840 over 105, which reduces to 8. And that's going to be 10 lemons, that was our x, 124 oranges, that was our y, and 8 pomegranates, which was our z. And that's how you do it. Done. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did, please click that like button. If you want to see more from the Scalar Learning channel, make sure to click subscribe. Thank you guys so much for joining, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.